Ever walk into a room and instantly feel tired before anyone says a word? It's not your age, it's not the lighting, it's not your blood sugar, it's energy. And the older we get, the more sensitive we become to it. The louder the noise, the heavier the drama, the more obvious the weight of negativity. So here's the truth. They don't often tell you about aging. The greatest wealth you can possess in your later years isn't money, it's peace. And the hardest decision you'll ever have to make, who you allow into that peace and who you keep at arm's length. You see, as we grow older, something subtle but profound begins to shift. Sure, our knees might creak when we get up. We forget names, keys, and sometimes why we walked into the kitchen in the first place. But beyond the surface, something deeper is happening. We become exquisitely aware of energy. We start to notice what drains us, what uplifts us, what steals our calm, and what quietly nourishes it. Suddenly, it's not just about what someone says, but how their presence feels. And more we find ourselves running low on tolerance for the unnecessary, the drama, the noise, the constant hum of complaints. Because peace becomes sacred. It becomes something you defend not with aggression, but with quiet, intentional boundaries. Now let me tell you about one kind of person that, especially as we grow older, you absolutely must learn to love from a distance: the constant complainer. You know the one. Nothing is ever right. Ever. The coffee's too weak. The air conditioner's too cold. The news is always bad. They complain about the weather, the traffic, their neighbor's dog, the government, the price of eggs, the squeaky chair, the noise outside, the silence, inside the sunshine, the rain, the fact that it's Tuesday. And here's the real kicker. They often don't even realize they're doing it. To them, it's just casual conversation, a harmless observation. But to you, it's a slow, invisible leak in your emotional well-being. Because every word they speak is like a gray cloud floating in. And before you know it, you're walking away from a simple 5-minute conversation. Feeling heavy, feeling off, feeling a little more irritable than you were before. You might not even notice it at first. But the complaints linger. They echo in your mind. And slowly, you start to look at your own life through their fogged-up lens. You stop seeing what's working. You start fixating on what isn't. And the saddest part: many of these chronic complainers are deeply hurt people. They've faced loss. They've experienced disappointment. Life has bruised them in places that never fully healed. And rather than deal with it, they wear it like armor, never allowing light to reach their wounds. They've trained themselves to expect the worst. And yes, we can have compassion for that. We should, but here's the hard truth. There's a difference between holding space for someone's pain and letting that pain live rent-free in your peace. Because, make no mistake, negativity is contagious. Hang around a complainer long enough and you'll start to question your own joy. You'll find yourself mirroring their tone, their doubts, their frustrations. You'll start to believe that peace is only possible after the problems are solved, instead of understanding that peace is possible in spite of them. And that's not the tone you want for this chapter of your life. You've lived. You've sacrificed. You've built and rebuilt. You've survived heartbreak and healing. You've earned every laugh line, every scar, every quiet morning you wake up, and thank God for breath in your lungs. At this point, you don't owe anyone access to your peace. You've earned the right to sit with a warm cup of tea in hand, watching the sunrise without someone ranting about the weather. You've earned the right to find joy in small things: a blooming flower, a clean kitchen, the sound of your grandchild laughing down the hall. You've earned the right to stop being pulled into someone else's storm just because they never learned how to dance in the rain. Now, this doesn't mean you become cold or cruel, It doesn't mean you ghost everyone who's having a rough day. It means you become intentional, discerning, wise. You draw a line not from arrogance, but from self-respect. Because the energy you allow in your space, it shapes you, and what you allow is what will grow. You wouldn't leave your door open to a thief. So why leave your heart open to someone who robs you of joy? Here's what I've noticed after decades of watching people age. The ones who live fully, who radiate peace in their 60s, 70s, 80s, are not the ones who had perfect lives. They're the ones who made a decision. They chose gratitude over grumbling. They chose to laugh at burnt toast and thank God for breath on tough mornings. They didn't let a broken appliance ruin a beautiful day. They didn't allow temporary discomfort to blind them to lasting blessings. Their joy wasn't dependent on what was happening. Their joy was a choice. So if you've got someone in your life who always carries a weather forecast of doom, who's always predicting storms, even when the sky is clear, maybe it's time you start carrying an emotional umbrella. Maybe it's time to protect yourself from the rain they insist on bringing, and walk in your own sunshine. You're not being selfish. You're being wise. You're not rejecting people. You're reclaiming peace. And you deserve it. You've earned it. So guard it with grace, with love, with boundaries. And remember, it's not how loud your life is that determines your joy. It's how deeply rooted your peace is. Let that be the legacy you leave. You don't owe anyone your peace. Let that truth sink in for a moment. You're not obligated to step into their storm just because they handed you an umbrella. You're not required to join them in that gray cloud of guilt, tension, or emotional chaos. Let them find their way out on their own terms. Meanwhile, you stay grounded in the sunshine. You focus on what's good, what's real, and what's right now. Because at this point in life, peace isn't a luxury you occasionally indulge in, it's a necessity. Like oxygen, like rest. It's the foundation that holds your spirit steady when everything else feels shaky. And the older you get, the clearer that becomes. There's a kind of vision that only time can give you. Not the kind that fades with age, but the kind that sharpens. After you've lived through enough laughter and loss, betrayal and healing, you start to see people for who they really are, not who they pretend to be, or who you hoped they were. That mask they wear. It starts to slip when you've seen enough of life. And as the years go by, your tolerance for games, emotional manipulation, or any kind of subtle toxicity drops, all the way to zero. And thank God it does. Because by the time you reach this season of life, peace isn't just something you want. It's something you need to survive, to thrive, to sleep well at night, and wake up without dread in your chest. Now, if there's one kind of person who can quietly rob you of that peace, not with shouting or slamming doors, but with silence guilt or a sweet smile, it's the manipulator. You've probably met them. Maybe you didn't recognize it at first. They're not always obvious. In fact, some of the most manipulative people are the quietest ones in the room. They're calm, polished. They don't yell. They don't fight. But make no mistake, they know exactly how to pull your strings. And they're very good at pretending it's love. They'll twist your loyalty into a leash. They'll take your kindness and stretch it into obligation. Not always for money, not even for favors. Sometimes it's not about getting anything tangible from you, it's simply about knowing they can. Knowing they can control how you feel, how you respond, how far you're willing to bend just to keep the peace. And that's what makes them dangerous. It can be as subtle as a sigh when you say no, or a text message that reads, "Wow, I didn't expect that from you," or those 5 little words that carry the weight of guilt. After all I've done for you, before you know it, you're changing your plans, rearranging your schedule, biting your tongue, bending your boundaries, not because you want to, but because you're afraid of disappointing them, afraid of being misunderstood, afraid of the silent treatment. afraid of losing the relationship, even if it's been hurting you for years. Let me be clear. In this season of life, you don't owe anyone your peace. You don't have to explain your boundaries. You don't need to apologize for protecting your energy. It's not cruel to say I love you, but I won't be manipulated. It's wise. Because love without respect. That's not love at all. That's control. And control has no place in healthy relationships. Especially now when your time is precious, your energy is limited, and your peace is hard-won. I've seen it too often. Good people, gentle, loyal, generous souls, spending their later years walking on eggshells around the very people who should have been their soft place to land. Instead of being uplifted, they're emotionally exhausted. Instead of feeling supported, they feel used. Why? Because they've mistaken guilt for love, obligation for connection. But here's the truth. There's a big difference between being there for someone and being used by someone. Manipulators are masters at blurring that line. Sometimes they've been in your life so long you can't imagine life without them. You justify their behavior. You tell yourself, that's just how they are. You've normalized the guilt trips, the emotional strings, the double standards. But deep down, you feel it. That unease, that inner tension, that moment when you catch yourself saying yes, but everything in your soul is whispering no. And here's something else people don't say enough. Just because someone has a long history with you doesn't mean they deserve a future with you. Not if that history is filled with manipulation, guilt, or subtle control. Not if they drain your spirit more than they pour into it. You're allowed to outgrow people. Yes, even if they're family. Yes, even if you've known them for 40 years. Yes, even if you once believed you couldn't live without them. You're allowed to redefine your boundaries, even if they've been the same for decades. You're allowed to say, that doesn't work for me anymore. And you don't need a dramatic confrontation to do it. Sometimes the most powerful shift you can make is a quiet one. Not out of bitterness, not out of anger, but out of deep, unshakable self-respect. It's not about cutting people off just to prove a point. It's about choosing your emotional health over patterns that keep wounding you. It's about guarding the peace you've worked so hard to build. It's about saying, I've lived too long, learned too much, and grown too deeply to let this continue. And don't be surprised if people don't like that change. Manipulators rely on access. They rely on your guilt. They rely on the assumption that you'll never walk away. And when you finally start to close that door, or even just crack it a little less, they notice. And they push harder. They may double down, call you selfish, say you've changed. But that's not a bad thing. Because maybe you have changed. Maybe you finally realize that you're not here to carry everyone's expectations. That your soul was never meant to be stretched thin to keep others comfortable. That peace is not a privilege you earn, it's a birthright you reclaim. So now the question becomes, how do you hold that boundary when guilt comes knocking? How do you keep your heart soft, but your lines firm? We'll talk about that in the next part, because protecting your peace isn't just a moment, it's a practice. And you're worthy of learning how to master it. You've drawn the line, reclaimed your peace. But what happens when that line is tested? That's when you hold your ground. Not with anger, not with loud words, but with grace, with quiet confidence, with the kind of strength that doesn't need to prove anything because it already knows its worth. You don't have to explain yourself to people who were never listening in the first place. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard by those who refuse to understand. You just keep choosing peace over and over again. Choosing yourself, your well-being, your sanity. Because, let's be honest, at this stage in life, you're not here to win arguments. You're not looking to convince anyone of anything. You're not signing up for emotional tug-of-war matches that leave you exhausted and empty. You're not proving a point. You're protecting your peace. What you need now is different. You need quiet mornings with the sun gently pouring through the window. You need deep belly laughs that come from a real place, not the forced smiles we put on for other people. You need conversations that leave you lifted, not drained. You need relationships that feel like lightness, not weight. Because you've carried enough already. For years you've held it all together, for family, for friends, for people who didn't always see what it cost you. You don't need to carry someone else's guilt, manipulation, or drama too. You've earned the right to rest. Let peace be your standard now. Let it be the filter you use when deciding who gets access to your heart. There's a wisdom that only comes with age. It's not the kind you find in books, or podcasts, or even the best sermons. It's earned through living, through loving and losing, through giving without being thanked, through forgiving when you could have walked away. It's a wisdom carved from experience. And one of the most profound truths that becomes clear with time is this: some people are not in your life to give. They're in your life to take. Not in an evil, malicious way, not always. Sometimes they don't even realize they're doing it. But the result is the same. They extract your time, your energy, your attention. They come with open hands, but never full ones. They're the ones who call only when they're in trouble. The ones who only show up when something's broken and they expect you to fix it. The ones who vanish once the favor is done. Sound familiar? Maybe it's that cousin who only calls when rent is due. Or the old friend who's always going through something but never asks how you're doing. Or maybe it's someone even closer. Someone you've loved for decades. Here's the hard truth: they're not bad people. But they are takers. Chronic takers. And if you're not careful, they will drain you dry. You'll walk away from every conversation feeling a little heavier, a little more tired, and you won't even know why until you start noticing the pattern. Now, maybe you've always been the giver, the rock, the reliable one, the one everyone turns to when things fall apart. You've carried the load, fixed, the problems made, the calls stayed strong, and that's admirable. That's beautiful. That's love in action. But here's the thing: you're not meant to carry the world forever. Especially not now. Not in this chapter. You've already done the heavy lifting. If someone hasn't learned to stand on their own by now, it is not your responsibility to keep holding them up every time they fall. What makes these dynamics so tricky is how they hide. They wear the disguise of love. They come wrapped in soft words like, "You're the only one I can talk to. I knew you'd understand. After all we've been through together." But let's get honest. Real love doesn't drain you. Real relationships don't leave you depleted, second-guessing your worth. They're mutual. They give and take in balance. They fill you up, not just empty you out. If you're the only one giving, sacrificing, bending, it's not love. It's dependence. And unbalanced dependence turns into burden. Fast. It is okay to say no. It is okay to let someone figure it out without you. You are not abandoning them. You're finally choosing not to abandon yourself. And if they react badly, if they guilt, you shame, you call you selfish. That says more about them than it ever will about you. Because anyone who truly values you won't punish you for setting boundaries. They won't act like you're a problem just because you stopped solving theirs. They'll care how you're doing, not just what you can do for them. They'll reach out with love, not just with need. They'll offer help, not just ask for favors. They'll listen without waiting to ask for something. The most difficult part: sometimes these people are tied to your history, family, old friends, people who were there through your highs and lows, people who've shared dinners, holidays, memories. That's what makes it complicated. Because the history is thick. It pulls on your heart. It whispers, you owe them. But love built on obligation. That's not love, it's duty. And duty without joy becomes resentment. Yes, you can have compassion. Yes, you can care about their pain, but you can also care about your own. You can also say, I love you, but I love me too. Boundaries don't mean you stop loving someone. They mean you stop letting their needs swallow you whole. So if someone in your life constantly takes, but rarely gives, constantly needs but never sees, your needs constantly asks, but never listens, it's okay to change the pattern. You're not being harsh, you're being wise. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself and for them is to create space. You can care deeply. You can wish someone well. You can love someone from a distance, and still choose peace over proximity. I've seen it far too often: good-hearted people reaching their later years, feeling emotionally, even financially depleted. Not because life was overwhelmingly cruel, but because they carried people who never intended to walk on their own. They gave and gave until there was little left for themselves. And I say this with the softest voice and the fullest heart. It's okay to put some of that weight down now. Not out of bitterness, not out of resentment, but simply because your peace matters more than ever. These years, they are sacred. They're not for fixing others. They're for finding joy, for laughing until your sides ache, for waking up without 100 unspoken obligations waiting to steal your time and energy. You deserve mornings filled with gratitude, not guilt. Afternoons filled with genuine conversation, not one-sided effort. Nights filled with peace, not emotional exhaustion. Let yourself be surrounded by people who pour into you as much as you've poured into others. People who see your value, even when you're not useful. People who check in not because they need something, but because they care. People who show up for you. And if someone's presence in your life always comes with strings attached, with imbalance, with that quiet weight of emotional labor, then you owe it to yourself to gently step back. Not to punish them, but to preserve yourself. Because this isn't just another season of life. This is the season where you protect what's left of your energy, your joy, your sanity. You don't owe those things to anyone who refuses to meet you halfway. As the years go by, you begin to understand that the quality of your relationships far outweighs the quantity. It's no longer about crowded rooms or busy calendars. It's about meaningful connections, the kind that uplift your spirit, not drain it. And one of the quietest, most insidious thieves of joy, gossip and drama. We've all met them. The ones who carry gossip like it's oxygen. The ones who thrive on someone else's chaos. Who always know just enough about someone else's life to keep the conversation swirling. Never about ideas, always about people. Did you hear what happened to so-and-so? I can't believe what she's wearing these days. Can you believe what he said at dinner? At first, it feels like idle chatter. Harmless talk. Just passing the time. But make no mistake, it sticks. Their words hang in the air long after they're gone. They sneak into your thoughts, pulling you into a cloud you never asked to enter. You find yourself replaying conversations, questioning others, doubting people who haven't wronged you. You begin to see the world through a lens someone else handed you, and it's smudged with suspicion. And before you even realize it, you're carrying weight that isn't yours. Thoughts that don't belong to you. Judgments that never should have taken root in your heart. That's the poison of gossip. It never stays contained. It starts with them, but it spreads to you. It eats away at trust. It invites negativity. And worst of all, it disconnects you from the things that truly matter: peace, love, and clarity. Especially in this chapter of life when your focus should be on joy, healing, and reflection. The last thing you need is someone constantly pulling you into someone else's mess. You might think they're not trying to be harmful. It's just how they talk. But hear me, impact matters more than intention. If someone keeps bringing you buckets of other people's drama, their chaos becomes your climate. Their storm becomes your atmosphere. And over time, you start looking at your own life through that same toxic filter. You second-guess kindness. You doubt sincerity. You become cautious around even those who mean you well. That's the legacy of gossip. It isolates, it hardens, it robs you of softness. So, be mindful of who you let sit at your table. Choose people who bring warmth, not whispers. Who bring laughter, not low-level tension. People who speak life, not gossip. Because at the end of the day, your peace is sacred, and it's too expensive to rent out to someone else's chaos. Up next, let's talk about how to rebuild joy in your life intentionally. Tenderly, one healthy moment at a time. Because once you've cleared out the noise, it's time to make space for what truly matters. Let's pick up right where we left off, because there's another side to this conversation about gossip that's even more dangerous. And it's not always obvious. These are the people who don't just gossip to pass the time, they gossip with purpose. They have a motive. Maybe they want you to take sides in a conflict you had no part in. Maybe they're trying to manipulate your perception of someone else. Or perhaps more subtly, they're trying to hand you their emotional baggage and negativity, hoping you'll carry it for them. Whatever their reasons, make no mistake, their words are not harmless. Gossip is never just noise, it's a tool. Sometimes it's a weapon. And when someone uses it intentionally, it becomes an emotional trap, one designed to pull you into their world of judgment, assumptions, and silent resentments. Here's the hard truth. Even if you're not the one spreading it, even if you think you're just a bystander, listening to gossip is still dangerous. It's like standing too close to a fire and convincing yourself you won't feel the heat. Eventually, the sparks land on you. You start to carry their biases without realizing it. Their criticisms echo in your mind. Their grudges begin to feel like your own. And little by little, the way you see people begins to shift. Suspicion replaces trust. Negativity shadows your optimism. And instead of walking freely through your life, you start tiptoeing, careful not to step into the drama you didn't even create. That's not the kind of life you worked so hard to build. Not now, not after everything you've been through. By this stage in life, you've earned the right to be selective. You've earned the right to guard your peace like it's gold, because it is. You've spent years giving your time, your heart, your energy. You've walked through hardship. You've learned lessons the hard way. And the last thing you need now is someone pulling you back into storms you've already survived. So if someone in your life is constantly stirring the pot, always fueling the fire, always inviting you into their narrative of drama, you don't have to go. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to create distance. It's not cruelty, it's wisdom. You need people who see the good in others, who speak with kindness, who dream out loud about the future, instead of dragging conversations through the mud of the past. People who don't see relationships as battlegrounds or conversations as campaigns. Gossip does nothing but tear down. It leaves ruin in its wake, broken trust, fractured friendships, and an atmosphere heavy with judgment. And once you learn to recognize it, to step away from it, you'll be surprised at how much lighter your spirit feels. Your conversations will shift. They'll become fuller, more real, more joyful, and the people left in your inner circle, they'll be the kind who pour into your peace, not pull from it. So if there's someone in your life who always speaks ill of others, always fills the room with suspicion, it may be time to let go. Not in anger, not even in confrontation, but in clarity. Let go for your own peace. Step away to protect your spirit. You're not obligated to stand in the storm of someone else's making. You deserve a life filled with real love, real joy, and real connection. Not shadows, not whispers, not weight you were never meant to carry. Because as we grow older, something remarkable happens. we begin to truly understand how precious the present moment is. Time no longer stretches endlessly ahead. It becomes more valuable, more sacred. And with that awareness, we begin to shift. We begin to savor, really savor the little things. The warm light of morning, the sound of laughter over a simple meal, the quiet joy of knowing you are safe in your space surrounded by people who mean you well. These moments become the wealth of your life. But there's a kind of person who seems determined to steal that joy, not maliciously, but persistently. These are the ones who are stuck in the past. And let's be clear, remembering the past isn't the problem. Recalling lessons, cherishing memories, honoring those who came before us, those are beautiful, vital things. The danger is in getting trapped there. The ones who can't stop rehashing what went wrong, who live every day as if it's still 20 years ago, who refuse to let wounds heal, replaying them like old songs that only bring pain. And when you spend too much time with people like that, you begin to feel it, the heaviness, the pull. You start to look backward more than you look forward. But life isn't meant to be lived in rewind. It's meant to be lived now, fully, deeply, lightly. So let this be a gentle reminder, protect your present. You've earned it. And as we step into the next part of this journey, let's talk about what it means to truly live in the now, to embrace joy without guilt and peace without apology. Let's pick up right where we left off, because there's another trap that can quietly steal your joy, especially as you grow older. It's not always loud, and it doesn't always announce itself with drama or chaos. No, this one is more subtle, more familiar. It's the habit of living in the past. So many people fall into it. They get so caught up in what was, in what could have been, in all the regrets and missed chances, that they forget to actually live. They forget to look around and see the life still unfolding in front of them. Instead of embracing today, they are haunted by yesterday. These are the ones who bring up the same old grievances, the same stories, the same arguments. You can almost predict the conversation before it starts. Every visit turns into a guided tour of old wounds. Every chat circles back to who hurt them, who disappointed them, what they lost, and what never turned out the way they'd hoped. And it's not that those stories don't matter. Pain matters. Loss matters. But when you hold on to it too tightly, it starts to hold you back. The more you relive the past, the more it becomes your present. And soon, you're not just remembering, you're reliving. Emotionally, mentally, even spiritually. And the worst part, you don't even realize how much of your joy is slipping through your fingers while your mind is somewhere else. Think about it. When your thoughts are fixed on what's gone, how can you be fully present with what's here? How can you make space for new joys, new friendships, new memories, if your arms are still holding on to what was? Of course, the past has its place. It teaches us. It shapes us. But it's not meant to be a home. It's meant to be a classroom. Something we visit when we need perspective, not somewhere we live every day. Because when you stay too long in that place, it doesn't just cloud your joy. It clouds your judgment. It starts to shape the way you see the people around you, the opportunities around you, even the blessings around you. And often the ones most stuck in the past are those who never truly processed their pain. Maybe they lost someone they loved. Maybe life handed them a series of hard, unfair turns. Or maybe they simply never got the closure they needed. That's understandable. That's human. But the danger is, when that grief becomes a lens, they see everything through. When it becomes their identity. Here's what that looks like. Every conversation turns negative. Every opportunity is dismissed. Every act of kindness is questioned. There's a heaviness that follows them, and if you're not careful, it starts to follow you too. You see, emotions are contagious. Spend too long with someone who's trapped in bitterness, and you'll start to carry some of that weight. You'll start to look at your own life through the same narrow lens. And suddenly, your vibrant world feels dull. Your hopeful heart feels tired. And the present moment, the one thing you truly have, starts to feel like it's slipping away. That's why protecting your peace is not just about avoiding drama, it's about gently stepping away from anything that anchors you to what you've already let go of. Especially now, especially in this season of your life. You've earned the right to be here fully. You've earned mornings filled with ease conversations, filled with warmth, and relationships rooted in what's possible, not what's past. You deserve people who talk about where they're going, not just where they've been. People who remind you of the beauty still unfolding. People who help you see that life, even with its scars and missteps, still holds so much promise. Because here's the simple truth: we cannot change the past. No matter how much we analyze it, mourn it, or try to rewrite it in our minds, it remains what it was. But what we can do is change our relationship to it. We can choose to stop letting it steal from our present. We can choose to let it be what it is, part of our story, not the whole story. Forgiveness helps. So does gratitude, and grace for others and for yourself. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing not to be ruled by what you can no longer control. So if someone in your life is constantly dragging you into the past, always circling the same old pain, and refuses to look forward, gently, lovingly create space. You're not doing it out of anger. You're doing it to protect the future you're still building. Because life is still calling. New experiences are still waiting. And the present moment, the one you're in right now, is a gift. Don't trade it for memories you've already unwrapped. As we step into the next part of this journey, let's talk about what it really means to move forward, to leave the past behind with love and wisdom, and step boldly into the light of what's still to come.